Hello, this is Virgin, Most Powerful Radio. Our 2024 Spiritual Warfare Conference dates are set for Friday and Saturday, March 15th and 16th, and registration is now open at vmpr.org. We bring you the same lineup from last year featuring Father Chad Ripperger and the rest of the Liber Christo Deliverance Ministry. The numerous presentations that they give around the country always premiere at our Spiritual Warfare Conference. Every Catholic needs to be educated in spiritual warfare. You need ancient tools to combat an ancient enemy, and that's exactly what Liber Christo is all about. So sign up and don't miss the brand new Spiritual Warfare Conference with special guest celebrant Bishop Joseph Strickland. Donate now to live stream the event and receive the conference recordings, or you can sign up to attend in person. All this at vmpr.org. Thank you for your support and see you there.
Before we get to the actual nature of authority, though, I want to talk about what's called the three instances. And basically what happened is when God created the hierarchy of angels, so he created the entire hierarchy instantaneously all at once. Now, if you think about what that means that billions upon billions of angels instantaneously came into existence all at once. A whole hierarchy. So St. Thomas says that when they were first created, they were created into a perfect act of knowing. See, unlike human beings who have to think about stuff for a while, the angels just have to think about something. Like if they want to know what it means to be a dog, they just have to look at the concept of dog in their mind, and they instantaneously exhaust everything there is to know about a dog that's possible to know. Instantaneously, all at once. That's how they know, which is opposite of us. It takes us a while to kind of figure things out. So when the angels were created, they were created into an act of knowing. And part of that, in that act of knowing was who they were, what their own particular nature was, which also meant that in seeing their nature, they actually understood what their assigned task is, why God made them. He wanted them to do a specific thing. Also, who he was, what their relationship was. Also, St. Thomas says they had the infused gifts or infused virtues of faith, hope, and charity, which means that they also had, by having faith, they also had the infused knowledge of the incarnation and also of the Passion. Oh, and also the Blessed Trinity, I should say. That meant that they knew that God was going to become man. This is why in the beginnings of the scriptures, you'll see in the beginnings of the Gospels, they're testing him to see who he is and whether this is that. But then at a certain point, they realize this is it. This is the guy, based on what they knew about him prior to their fall. So they instantaneously know all of that. It means that when they made their choice, which is in the second instance, so the first instance that they were created, they have a full, complete knowledge of who and what they are. At that moment of their creation, God also infused all of the essences of everything that was ever going to exist into their minds. So we're going to return to why that's important here in a minute. That means that when it came to dogs, animals, human beings, everything that would ever exist, they had full comprehension of those things to the degree that their intellect could comprehend it. So that meant that when they saw who and what they were, St. Thomas says in that first instance in their intellect, when they saw the totality of all that, they saw the order and absolute beauty of what God had created. And so he said, at that same instance was a concomitant delight in the will in seeing how beautiful it was. Then they had to make a choice. And that meant that in the context of this, there was some particular good that was above their nature, but that they saw was a good thing. And so they had to be willing to sacrifice that thing in order to be faithful to the tasks that God was asking of them. So either they were going to be faithful to the task that God asked of them, and therefore fulfill God's will for them, or they were going to reject that because they would desire or choose to want this thing that was in their minds. They also knew that they would never get it. So it meant when they made their choice, if they chose to not reject God's will and then to actually choose that thing above them, they knew they were never going to get it. So they literally chose a figment of their imagination over reality. The third instance is, so they make their choice. The third instance means, St. Thomas says, there's no need for a delay in the judgment. So instantaneously, they either had the beatific vision and saw God face to face, or they immediately experience the pain of loss if they rejected him. Okay. I lay that whole thing out because in that first instance, when God infused the essences of all created things in their minds, it means that God infused not just the natures of angels in their minds, and therefore the authority structure as it governs angelic nature, because they're all created in a hierarchy. And St. Thomas talks about the upper ranks communicate to the middle rank the will of God, the conceptual knowledge of what God wants to be done. That middle rank then is the administration. They're the ones that govern the lower ranks on how things are to be done in the execution of God's will. And so they're kind of administrative. Interestingly, in cases of possession, you tend to see the possessors tend to be from the top rank, which is the top three choirs, or the bottom three choirs. They tend the bottom rank. You don't tend to see them from the middle. Once in a great while you do, but generally you don't see them from that middle rank. Okay, so that means that they understand perfectly authority structure is. They know exactly what authority is. They know who has authority over what. So that who has authority we call ad personam in Latin. It means the person who actually has the authority. The ad rem, which is the thing over which they have authority. So this particular person has authority over this particular thing. And that means that there's only one authority that's absolute. Not even the papacy has an absolute authority. Even his authority is restricted by the divine positive law and the natural law as the church has taught. So only God has absolute authority. So the angels understand exactly where the lines of demarcation are of authority in angels. But because they have the infused essences of the essence of infused in their mind about human beings, it also means that they have an absolutely perfect understanding of exactly where the lines of demarcation are regarding which person has authority over what, human being-wise. They know which human beings have authority over their families, over this, over that. They know exactly how that stuff works. So much so that they recognize our rights in relationship to it, and they function in the context of that authority structure. In the end, angels really only got one choice if you look at it. They got the choice to either serve God or not. Once they chose that or not, because in their choice of will, they had perfect, complete comprehension of what they were doing. It meant when they made their choice, that was all in on that choice. It's not like human beings who are pretty stupid. And so as a result, we'll make a choice, and then later we're like, well, that was stupid. I didn't want that. So that's why our wills don't become as fixed in relationship to what we choose. It does slowly over the course of time, but in relationship to angels, their will becomes perfectly fixed in either the good or the bad based upon their choice. And so outside that context of that choice, that means that they know that because part of the natural law is that, so in the natural law, St. Thomas says, there are three categories of natural inclination. What does this mean? Let's back up. Each angel is its own nature. That means that one angel is essentially different from every other angel that exists. Essentially different. See, human beings are not essentially different. We all have the same nature or human essence. What distinguishes us is what we call accidents. You have gray hair, I have gray hair, but I have different gray hair. And you might have blue hair. Some people have blue hair, right? Okay, so some older ladies whose hair is legitimately blue, I suppose. But anyway, the point being is that we're different in accidental qualities. And what distinguishes us is our bodies. So I'm different from you because I have this body and you have that body, right? Okay, so that's what makes us different. So we all have the same human nature, whereas every one of them is essentially different. But they have so St. Thomas says that human beings have three categories of natural inclinations. And if you read his text on his commentary on Peter Lombard's sentences, he talks about how the angels have the same three categories of natural inclination, but they're slightly different from ours. And I'm going into this because I want this to understand. There's a lot of confusion. People are running around saying, well, there's this famous exorcist, and he's telling people that lay people can't impose hands on other people, and I want to show you where he's wrong. I'm not wrong. And I'm going to tell you why I'm not wrong. The theology which I'm about to give you is borne out in our experience. If you step outside the authority structure, and the demons know that, you are stepping into the realm of the disorder, and that's their domain. And they will take you to the woodshed. So a lot of times you'll see these people, well, I impose hands on people, and I pray over people all the time, and there's not a problem. All you have to do is ask them one question. What's your family life like? The collateral damage in these people's lives is unbelievable. If you don't follow the authority structure, you're just going to get taken to the woodshed, because as I mentioned, the demons know exactly where that is. You step out of it, they know you're out, because the two principal functions of authority is to provide and to protect. And that means that you're stepping out from underneath the protection of God, and you can get taken to the woodshed. So the three categories of natural inclination are conservation of our being as it is. Right, that's the first one. And this means that men want to remain men and women want to remain women as long as they have use of reason. Right? Okay. I'll let you think about that one. Second, in human beings, it's what we have in common with other animals. That's having children and raising them, etc. But in angels, that's their assigned task. It's who they are. And so when they rejected their assigned task, because their assigned task is an integral part of their nature, it meant when they made their choice and they decided not to follow their task, it was a perfect act of self-hatred. This is what they have. They hate themselves. Even though they're selfish, they're they can't stand themselves because of that. They chose completely against it. The third one is that which is proper to the life of the intellect. So that is that we should pursue truth. We want to have a knowledge of the truth. We actually do have a natural inclination to government, just not this bloated of a government. All right. We actually have an inclination towards that we have this as human beings, but this is also in angels. So that part of that governance is that authority structure. But it also means that one of the parts of the natural law, St. Thomas says in his commentary on Peter Lombard's sentences, is that God is to be obeyed. That is so absolutely clear in their minds that they are incapable of denying it. In fact, the whole structure of exorcism is that the demon knows that you've received the authority from your bishop, and therefore, which came from God, and as a result, they must obey. And so over the course of time, they'll just be compliant. They always show some degree of compliance. And so they know that they have to obey, but that means that they have a perfect understanding of exactly what the lines of demarcation are regarding authority. And if you don't have the authority, they're just going to ignore you.